I think we are live now. So, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar about the process approach, what it is, why it's important, and how to do it. My name is Pereira da Cruz, and I'm an author at 𝗧𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗲. I do quite a lot of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 consulting and training, as well as auditing as lead auditor. So today I'm going to share with you my thoughts about the process approach. Okay, I've been in love with the process approach for almost 30 years. Okay, my presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, after which we'll do the 20-minute session, question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, you don't have to wait for the Q&A session. You can ask it during my presentation. Of course, in the Q&A session, I'll also answer all of your remaining questions. Okay, so let's see. Now, before we dive into details, let's set the context, okay? The process approach is not just a theoretical concept, okay? It's a critical discipline for helping organizations achieve their objectives efficiently and effectively. So in this webinar, we're going to cover the fundamentals, what the process approach really means, okay? Why it's so important, and above all, how to apply it in real practical terms. Okay, so this session is designed especially for professionals who are responsible for quality management, process improvement, or regulatory compliance. So people who need the process approach not just to pass audits, but to drive real, meaningful performance improvement. Okay, now let's go to our agenda. So first, we will see the definition of the process approach, okay? Main pain points and how to use it in practice. So the process approach requires seeing an organization as a set of interrelated processes. So our next topic will be about how to map the processes, how to model how an organization works. ISO 9001 is very prescriptive, is very detailed about process characterization. That will be our next topic. Okay. Then we will see a technique that I use to flowchart a process. Flowcharts are very useful for determining risks and competence requirements or knowledge management. And then I want to show you how the process approach must be dynamic. Okay. That will be our next topic. And at the end, I will share with you what are the main challenges according to the emails that I received from you, okay, before this webinar. So, yeah, let's move. So, first, here, some pain points, okay? Let's be honest. Many of us have heard about the process approach, maybe even been trained in it or gone through audits that mention it. But when it comes to actually making it work, things get frustrating, okay? So we can hear things like, we mapped all processes, but nothing changed. Well, this is something I hear a lot, okay? Organizations invest time and effort into creating process maps, but then they just sit on a shared drive, forgotten, yeah? No one uses them to manage or improve the work. Or we can hear also, nobody looks at the process maps. Exactly. Yeah, they're created for auditors, not for people doing the work. Okay, so if a process map doesn't help a team solve a problem or make a better decision, it gets ignored. People still work in silos. Yes, even with beautiful drawn processes, people act based on their department goals. There's no flow, just isolated efforts and lots of handoffs where accountability disappears. And okay, auditors ask us about processes, but we only have procedures. This one is so common. Many companies confuse having a set of procedures with having a real process-based way of working. But they're not the same. And that's a big part of what we'll explore today. Okay, so now, common misconceptions. Let's clear the air. When we talk about the process approach, there are some persistent myths that keep getting in the way. So processes and procedures are the same thing. No, this is one of the most common traps, okay? A procedure is a set of instructions, a document that explains, okay? A document that explains how to perform specific tasks. A process, on the other hand, is the actual flow of activities that produces a result. It's dynamic, involving people, interactions, inputs, and outputs. So a process is a set of interrelated or interacting activities that transform inputs into an intended, a desired outcome. So I like to compare a process to running water from a faucet, okay? It's about flow and movement. A process is action. So I name processes starting with a verb, okay? Ultimately, a process is not about what we do mechanically, it's about why we do it. So achieving a specific valuable result. So a process has a purpose. A process is like a mountain river seeking, running into the sea, okay? Now, process is not the same thing as procedure. Another one, each department is a process. This happens a lot, okay? It's perhaps the most common, okay? People think, oh, sales is a process, production is a process. No, no, okay? Departments are structures, not processes. A process typically flows through multiple departments. If we're mapping by department, you're not seeing how work really gets done. I like to say that processes don't care about departments, okay? Processes are horizontal, departments are vertical, okay? So let's see this one. A classic analogy for what happens in an organization without a process approach is to see the organization as a set of departments, the silos, okay? Silos because each silo only contacts the other silos through the top. Silos because each silo responds to different and conflicting incentives. Silos because they don't see the big picture. So I remember, and this, what I will show you is from real examples from companies, okay? I remember examples of companies where the sales department gets unprofitable sales because sales are good for bonuses, even if they are unprofitable. They would say, oh, that's not my problem, okay? Or purchasing earns big bonuses with the savings achieved while the rest of the company is plagued with supplier quality problems, delays, or errors. It's not my problem, they would say. Or production so focused on compliance with efficiency objectives that they don't care about the agreements with the customers. So, or the customer, so or the customer who negotiated special delivery, paid extra for it, hired the team to receive and apply the delivery, and then the delivery is not made. Why? Because logistics is valued for minimizing shipping costs. And so, minimizing expedition costs, even though clients go crazy with delays in deliveries. Oh, that's not my problem. Okay. So, with the process approach, different people from different departments work together. Okay. From client with needs to client served, we have this process. Let's say win order, for example. What is the purpose? Win profitable orders while meeting sales objectives and satisfying clients. Okay. So, and a process as with a process, different departments work together and coordinate to achieve common objectives. So, and this requires teamwork, okay? Common purpose, common benchmark, common objectives, okay? Now, let's go here. So, processes are only for manufacturing is another thing that I usually hear. No, or yes, process thinking started in manufacturing, but today it's everywhere, okay? In services, public administration, healthcare, education, IT. So if your organization creates value, it does through processes. And I would argue, okay, that the process approach is even more valuable in services than in manufacturing, as services are more abstract, okay? So make it with the processes, it makes it more challenge with when they are abstract, Okay, services are abstract, making it more challenging to visualize the flow and detect its issues. Okay, so let's reframe now things with a bit more accuracy. So processes are streams of value aiding activities crossing functions, crossing departments. This is the key concept. Okay, think a process like a river. It flows across the organization, picking up contributions from various people, systems, and areas, all working towards a shared result. Um, this one, procedures may support processes, but processes are about flow and results. Okay, so procedures help standardize specific steps, but the process is about delivering value, not following documents. So if your process works well but doesn't match the procedure, it's time to update the document. Okay, not the other way around. So next time someone says, we have a procedure for that, ask them, but do we understand the flow? Do we know who contributes and how it performs? That's the process approach, okay? Now, I leave here links for two articles, ISO 9001 Process versus Procedure, some practical examples, and the other one is What's Your Language? Don't confuse processes with procedures, okay? Now, what is the process approach? So, to use the process approach, an organization should understand and define the processes needed to meet its objectives and integrate them and their interactions into a system that use risk-based thinking. So, examples of processes are like win a project, develop a new service, prepare service, order material, provide service, and then we can we can design here the interrelations and interactions. So because we win a project, we have to develop a new service and order material and prepare the service with information from the development, and then provide the service and learn and send feedback to improve future developments, commercial projects, and service provision. So we will use the process approach as a lever to meet desired results. I would say that most of the organizations don't use it for this, but okay, we want to use the processes as levers to meet desired results, like using the domino effect. If you want to meet an objective, where do you have to act? So, for example, in this organization, um, who works mm, and who influences customer satisfaction. Mm. So see how in this example here, see how I avoid using the names of departments, okay, to identify processes. Processes are action, sets of activities. So I name a process using a verb, okay, and a noun. Verb for action and noun for what is act upon by the verb, okay? Let's see it. We have two questions. Sergio asked, shall a company's organization chart be prepared considering the process approach? So, shall a company's organization chart be prepared considering the process approach? No. An organization chart shows hierarchical structure and reporting lines, not process flows, okay? The process approach requires companies to identify and manage processes across departments, focusing on how value flows, not on who reports to whom. Okay? So in ISO 9001, the organization must define process responsibilities and interactions, which are different from and complementary to the traditional organizational chart. An organization chart shows hierarchy. The process approach shows how value flows across the organization. Okay. Now, Zara asked, is it enough to use document management system, DMS, I think, to show the interaction between the QMS processes? No. Okay. A DMS, a document management system, organizes documents, but it does not necessarily show how processes interact. ISO 9001 requires organizations to define and manage process interactions, meaning the flow of inputs, outputs, responsibilities, and links between processes. A process interaction map, flowchart, or matrix is typically needed, not just document organization, okay? DMS can support the process approach, but it cannot replace the need to explicitly show and manage process interactions, okay? Now, let's continue. Now, so we need to develop a model of an organization, of your organization, of our organization, as a set of processes, okay? So ISO 9001, 2015, clause 4.4.1 states that an organization shall determine the processes needed for a QMS. So how can that be done? Well, what I do is something like this. I gather a set of people that know the organization and I give them sticky notes and markers, okay? Then I post 2 sticky notes, okay? Client with needs, client served, that represent the responsible for the major input in the system and the receiver of the major output of the system. Now, what I ask is, what actions and activities do you see when going from one extreme into the other? People use sticky notes to write things that they remember. It's kind of a brainstorming, okay? I set a rule. Okay, you can write whatever you want in the sticky notes, but you must follow a rule. One sticky note must have one verb and one noun, like receive a request for proposal, write proposal, budget proposal, present proposal, negotiate proposal. So after that brainstorming, okay, one can start to aggregate sticky notes that belong to a flow of activities. Processes are sets of activities. So, for example, I can replace the first 5 sticky notes saying that they belong to a same process called win order. And repeating the technique for other sticky notes, we develop, okay, win order, plan production, manufacture order, deliver order. So we create this central sequence of processes. And repeating the technique, we determine the supporting processes, okay? The marketing activities, development activities, order material, repair, subcontract, okay, deliver order. And we put here a border just to facilitate what comes next. So say, okay, this is a kind of the brain of the organization, and improve competency, okay? So by mapping processes, we want to develop a model of how our organization works, of how and which parts of our organization can be worked in order to meet objectives and to respect constraints, okay? So we don't start with an ideal set of processes, okay? We start with the reality, with what people do every day. So, and we can add the interested parties, okay, that we interact with. Now, this here is the heart of the organization. These are the main processes. Everybody is working to support these processes, okay, because they serve clients and customers. The higher the rotation in this central set of processes, if the company is having working with the right customers, this is the best, okay? What we want is to more and more working in that central heart of the organization, the processes, okay? Now, these are the supporting processes. They exist to serve the main processes. You know that winter sport called curling, you see here, okay? Everybody in the organization is mopping the floor in these support processes, is mopping the floor to reduce friction, to make it easy, to facilitate customer service, to facilitate the central flow. Now, this one here is the brain of the organization. It is here that direction is set, objectives are set, performance is monitored, and decisions are made, okay? Again, let me stress this. For naming processes, I run away from department names as much as possible, because a process is flow, a process is horizontal, a process crosses departments. And I don't want to, instead of in order, I can put there sales process, and people will say, people from the development say, "Oh, that is with the salespeople." No, but salespeople need information, need inputs from development people, planning people, production people, warehouse people, or purchasing people. So yeah. Now I leave here, and also I try to use, as whenever possible, the name of the process is always in the singular, okay? Because I think it helps people focus in a particular outcome, okay? So I don't say win orders, win order. Manufacture orders, manufacture order. So I leave here a link to an article called "How to Create an ISO 9001 Process Flowchart," okay? Let's see a question here. Sunil asked, how do you differentiate the key business processes and supporting processes? Okay, so key business processes are those directly responsible for creating and delivering value to customers. So they achieve the organization's main objectives. Supporting processes provide the resources, the infrastructure, or services that key processes need to function effectively. Okay, so key processes are value creating, supporting processes are value enabling. Okay, so key processes deliver value to the customer, supporting processes enable key processes to deliver that value. Okay. Now, we choose to view the organization as this network of interrelated processes because that lens shows how today's results are generated. Okay, so once we understand which process steps, okay, drive current performance, we can deliberately adjust, streamline, or redesign them. Okay, turning insight into targeted improvements and setting the stage for higher performance tomorrow. Okay, now let's see. Let's use the help of ISO 9001 clause 4.4.1 and 4.4.2 to characterize a process. Okay, so we have a process. Let's consider a process called order material. Okay, first, what are the inputs that trigger the start of the process and who supplies them? What are the outputs of the process and who receives them? What methods should be followed? Methods to work, to control, and to monitor? What documents and records are needed or required? What monitoring is needed about the inputs, about the processing, or about the outputs and results? How many people, okay, how many people in what functions and with what competencies are needed? What kind of resources are needed? So materials, equipment, monitoring devices. So what we have here is the well-known turtle diagram. Okay. Now, what happens between the inputs and the outputs? That is the topic of the next slide. But before that, just two things. First, it's important also to state very clearly who is the process owner, who leads the process. And this is not easy, okay? The job of being the process owner is not easy because, is someone that needs to manage people from different departments, okay? Sometimes you may hear or read about SIPOC, okay? SIPOC. And that stands for suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and customers, okay? Don't forget that. So I leave here a link for two articles: how links between processes can increase level of quality, and ISO 9001, the importance of the process approach. Okay, now you will find all the necessary documents and records in our ISO 9001 Premium Toolkit. Let me show you how it looks like. So here we have here the list of all the documents procedures, forms, appendixes, guidelines that we have. Okay, I will show you, for example, this sales procedure. Okay, it's not the sales process, but the sales procedure. Let's see here, sales procedure. So, oops, here, so we have this one here. Sales procedure. So this is a Word document. You can customize this. You have here some comments that can help you. And you see here, this is a procedure, but includes also the process flow. Okay. And of course, we have here for the steps of the process, but more than that. Okay. We have, for example, for, okay, the purchasing and evaluate procedure for purchasing and evaluation of suppliers. The same, it's our document. You can customize this, and we have all these comments here that can help you, and we have the process flow. Okay, and just one more. Yeah, this one for. So again, let's see. This one here is for measuring customer satisfaction, and if you decide to include this as a process, you have here the process flow. Okay, so you can see the details of this toolkit here. So I leave here the link for the toolkit. Okay, now let's go back to our slides, and let's go back here. Okay, so now what happens for each process? What happens between the input and the output? Okay, so I use common presentation software to draw flowcharts. More important than the software are the rules that you set to lay out your process flow. Okay, and be careful because, for example, I am a person that I'm very visual. I like these kind of things. Okay, but for almost 35 years, I've been working with people that don't like drawings. Okay, they prefer words. Okay, so be careful with that. So I use this frame, okay, to draw and to read flowcharts more easily. So I draw these 4 areas. So for inputs, main steps, for control, and for records. Okay, in the records. I also add some swim lanes to consider the jobs, the functions, and their responsibility, authority, collaboration, and information. So the RACI matrix. Now, let's see this example, the process. Okay, so let's consider the example of a common process in an IT service company, resolve an incident. Okay, this process is often critical in IT service companies, focusing on resolving IT issues effectively and efficiently. So the process starts when a user detects an incident. So that's the trigger. Can be a system outage, can be a performance issue. So the trigger starts the process, okay? And the first step is to log the incident in the incident tracking system. The service desk does that, okay? You see there, okay, service desk does that. The incident is classified, then the priority is attributed, high, medium, low priority. Then the service desk team leader carries out an initial diagnosis and checks if the incident requires escalation. So this can lead, so you have here the ST, service desk team leader, so as the authority to decide this needs escalation or not, okay? So if we need escalation, we go here. If we don't need escalation, we go here to resolve, to continue with the resolution. So for escalated incidents, an in-depth investigation by a specialized team takes place. Then it comes resolution and recovery to implement a fix and recover service. And finally, we have the last step, closing the incident, confirm resolution with user and close the incident. Okay, incident closed. So who is responsible for each step? Who has authority? Who collaborates? And who is informed? Okay. So, by the way, don't be surprised if, while drawing the flowchart, and especially deciding responsibilities and authorities, spark heated debate and plenty of uncertainty comes out, okay? That's perfectly normal. And you're not the only ones facing it. You are not alone. I must confess, yesterday, after lunch, I was in a meeting, in a workshop with that problem, okay? With that problem. Now, so we flowchart the process, okay? Now let's see. When we have a flowchart, it's so powerful. We can do a lot of things with that, okay? So we can use it, the flowchart with with a small text. We can use it to train people about how we do things here. But flowcharts are very useful, for example, to determine risks and opportunities. So look into this flowchart, okay? Let's start with some critical questions. What can go wrong in our current process? Take a moment to think about these. Why might we not meet our intended results? Why do we not avoid undesirable results? So gather a team of participants in the process, include some internal customers of the process, and grab process performance reports. So what are the process risks? So, for example, failure to correctly detect or identify an incident, incomplete or incorrect logging of incident details, incorrectly classifying or prioritizing the incident, ineffective diagnosis due to lack of skills or incomplete information, delay or failure. You see, it's what we can do. We can more easily develop risks and opportunities, okay, um, with the help of the flowchart, okay? So, failing to resolve the incident fully or not confirming resolution with the user. So, this risk determination followed by risk evaluation may be the basis for your organization to rethink technical training, communication skills, and the number of personnel, okay? The exercise is not done in the abstract, okay, but with your feet on the ground with the help of the flowchart, okay? Now, John asked, how different is the process approach from risk-based approach? And when it is best to use either? Okay, first question, how different is the process approach from the risk-based approach? Okay, the process approach focuses on managing activities as interconnected flows, okay, to achieve consistent and effective results. The risk-based approach focuses on identifying and addressing uncertainties that could impact achieving those results. So they are not alternatives, they are complementary. So the process approach ensures flow and performance. The risk-based approach ensures resilience and robustness within those flows. Second question is that when it is best to use either. So use the process approach when designing, managing, and improving how work is structured and delivered. Apply the risk-based approach within each process to identify what might go wrong and prevent or mitigate those risks. Okay? So in ISO 9001, both approaches are expected to be embedded together, not used separately. Okay? Another thing that I like to use the flowchart, okay, or the description of the process is to determine competence requirements, is to help knowledge management. So let's use the example of the process resolve incident, okay, to show how to make the relationship between processes and competency requirements using users, okay, so end users and service desk as an example. So so you look into this and you think, what kind of knowledge and experience does an end user need to be a competent worker or a competent contributor to this process? And you may say something like, okay, awareness of standard operations and ability to recognize deviations means knowing how things are usually done and being able to notice when something is not right or is different from the usual way. Now, Let's go to the service desk in red. Okay, so what do they need to know? They need to know basic technical knowledge, alertness to anomalies, familiarity with monitoring tools. So they need to know some tech stuff, being quick to spot when things look weird or wrong, and knowing how to use the programs that check on the tech systems. Okay. Now, they need detail-oriented approach, good communication skills, basic IT and troubleshooting knowledge, proficiency in using incident tracking systems. So it means paying close attention to the little things, being good at talking and writing to others, knowing a bit about fixing tech problems, being really good at using the systems that keep track of tech issues. Okay, and you see, we can do this, continue with this, understanding of incident categories and severity levels, um, ability to assess urgency and impact, knowledge of business operations and critical systems, this decision-making skills. So being able to figure out quickly a tech problem needs fixing and how big of a deal it is, how the company works and which tech parts are super important. And so we can translate this into a kind of um, job requirements, okay, for the kind of competence requirements for job in terms of education, in terms of training, in terms of experience. And this is not the result of brainstorming, okay? No, this is the result of looking into, again, with our feet on the ground, okay, not daydreaming, feet on the ground with the help of the flowchart and thinking about this participant in the process, what kind of education, training, experience that person, the person doing the job, needs in order to be autonomous, in order to do the job well, okay, do the job efficiently, okay. So with the help of the flow chart, okay. Now, one last thing is process performance, okay. So whenever you look into, so we for each process we need indicators, we need performance indicators, we need KPIs, okay. So whenever you look into the purpose of a process, so like in this case, restore normal service operations as quickly as possible while minimizing the impact on the business operations and ensuring that the best possible service quality and availability levels are maintained. Now, a cynical person would read this and say, quickly, what do you mean by that? Minimizing, what do you mean by that? Best possible, what do you mean by that? Okay, because quickly can be 1 year, 1 second. So that's how when we have this, when we look into the purpose, we can start developing performance indicators that allow you to monitor process performance, okay, and determine what really matters for effectiveness. So in this case, we may have mean time to resolve, okay, so the average time it takes to resolve an incident after it has been reported, cost per incident, so the average cost incurred in resolving each incident, service level agreement compliance rate, the percentage of incidents resolved within the time frame stipulated by the SLAs. This reflects how well the service desk adheres to agreed upon service standards. So these KPIs, these indicators are effectiveness indicators, allow us to measure or to monitor if the purpose is being respected, okay? But if you look into the flow chart, okay, you can think about other possibilities. So look into the flow chart and identify cycle time and diamond boxes, those questions there. Okay, normally they are well suited to follow up on efficiency performance. So things like incident resolution efficiency, first contact resolution rate, so the percentage of incidents resolved on the first attempt, Reopen rate, for example, so would be the percentage of incidents that were reopened after being marked as resolved. Incident volume, total number of incidents reported in a given period. So this the kind of KPIs helps to track trends and identify patterns and that might indicate underlying problems. Okay, now, and for many organizations, this is the real story behind their process approach. They proudly model the company as a set of processes. They document everything neatly and even assign a few indicators, and then silence. Okay, it seems like in the old um, the old movies, black and white. So the end of the story. Okay, so what about those beautiful process maps? Okay, well, they gather dust in a forgotten shared folder, just waiting to be revived for the next audit. What is missing? What is missing is this. Showing the dynamic nature of the process approach. So we monitor, we measure, then we have the analysis where we translate this into graphs, into trends, and okay. Let me share a real-world example from a company, a contract manufacturing organization, a CMO. So during their annual management review, this evaluation of the performance of the management system, they set a clear quality objective to improve physical productivity, okay? Specifically, the output of their bottling lines, okay? So they knew productivity wasn't where it should be, but they didn't stop at intuition. They applied the process approach. So what they did is they conducted a Pareto analysis to identify where the biggest problems were coming from and reasons for stopping bottling lines. So it's kind of, instead of applying the risk-based thinking to just one process, they applied to the whole organization, to that model, okay? And the result was interesting. The main contributors to low production efficiency weren't just on the shop floor, okay? So the issues traced back to three key processes, okay? So develop the product and service, so problems in how the service was designed for each customer. Order material, issues with material availability, and manufacture order, the actual execution in production, okay? So in other words, bottling line performance wasn't just about operators working harder or faster. It was about improving the entire chain of activities that feed into production success. And this is what is missing most of the time, is linking objectives that we want to achieve with processes. Processes is like our toolbox, okay? It's like our toolbox. What processes should I improve? Should I redesign if I want to achieve a particular result? Okay, so we don't start from scratch. We already have a starting point, the current flow chart that describes how the process works today. So, for example, let's imagine that developed product and service is described by this flow chart here. Okay, so this is the current flow chart that describes how the process works today. Okay, but remember, the current process is not innocent. Okay, so it's perfectly designed to deliver exactly the results and the problems that we are experiencing with productivity. So we need to ask, what pains, what problems have we identified? These issues don't appear out of thin air. They are generated somewhere along the flow by the way we currently work. So in which steps which steps generate the problem? Okay, so each problem is a hurdle, some standing between today's performance and the performance we want. And for every problem, we must determine its root cause or causes hidden inside the process. And for each root cause, we define the actions that will eliminate. And these actions are not just isolated fixes, okay? They will update the process itself. They will change the way we work. And when the way we work changes, we also need to update the documents that describe the process and train people on the new way of doing things. And this is how a process becomes dynamic. Problems drive actions, actions reshape processes, and updated processes create better results. It's a never-ending story, okay? All right. Now, just to mention this, okay, based on the questions that I received from you before this webinar, these are the main challenges from those working with the process approach. So understanding and implementing the process approach. Some questions about auditing and managing process effectively. I will speak about that during the Q&A. And leadership engagement and organizational structure. Also, I will speak about this during the Q&A, okay? Now, so to conclude, as you can see, the process approach is foundational, okay, and very useful in implementing and improving the QMS. And for that purpose, we can use Advisera's ISO 9001 Premium Documentation Toolkit. Here's the link with more details. Okay, the link. And I'll also send you now the meeting link to schedule a call with our toolkit expert. He'll explain you how toolkit works and show you any document you'd like to see. Okay, so toolkit expert meeting link now. Okay. All right, so, okay, some of you requested some tips about how to implement a QMS. So we in Advisera developed a course for all that want to implement a management system for their organization or as external consultants. The video lectures are free, so perhaps they could help. You can watch the videos for free, okay? So we have you the link for our lead implementer course, the link for our 9001 Foundations course, so focused on the standard. Now, before we begin with the question and answer session, just to mention that you can also ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly. Just send me an email and I'll answer as quick as I can, okay? If you have to leave before this Q&A session is over, please do fill in the short survey that will open right after you leave the webinar, okay? So let's see, questions. So we have here a question from 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶𝗀𝗁. So 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶𝗀𝗁 asked, is ISO 9001 getting, and this is not, okay, this is not about process approach, but yeah, is ISO 9001 getting any major review anytime soon? Yeah, ISO 9001 is under review and is expected to be updated during perhaps 2026, okay? Isabel asked, how to involve top management to carry out the process approach, tips and or stages. Okay, so top management must be actively engaged because ISO 9001 requires them to demonstrate leadership and commitment to the QMS, clause 5.1. Yeah, so to involve them effectively, connect the process approach to business objectives. Show how it improves results, efficiency, customer satisfaction, and risk control. Keep it simple. Keep it simple and practical. Focus on key processes critical to strategic goals. Assign ownership. Ensure top management designates clear responsibilities for each process. Use data, so present performance indicators to make processes visible and measurable. And integrate into regular management reviews. So not as an extra task, okay, but as part of how they run the business. Top management must lead by example. If they treat processes seriously, the entire organization will follow. So I see that we have here a question from Hamri in YouTube. So is the process approach here similar to business process? So the process approach is the theoretical concept. And yes, we use business processes. Yeah, we use business processes. Okay. So I don't know if please, Amri, if I'm not answering to your question, please feel free to ask again or in another way. Okay. And now we have a comment here from LinkedIn. Oh, thank you, Felix. Okay. So, okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Now, another question is from Norali. Norali asked, how to audit process or operation in an organization? Yeah, okay. So start, this is how is interesting, okay? Because if you have a procedure and if you audit the procedure, you're going to check compliance. But when you have a process, okay, so start by understanding the purpose of the process and its expected outputs. Okay, so you want to, when you audit, you want to audit if the purpose is being achieved. Okay, start by, so follow the flow, verify the inputs, the activities, the responsibilities, the resources, the controls, and outputs. Okay, so check not only if documented procedures are followed, but if the process achieves its intended results. Focus on effectiveness, efficiency, and risks, not just compliance. Okay, that's where I see the big advantage of with the process approach with audits. It's allow us to focus. Normally, I don't have it here, but I in some trainings, what I use is a drawing that I made of the Titanic sinking. Okay, and the musicians are playing. You see some notes of music. Why? It means that we are following the procedures. Okay, we are doing our job, but so we are very honest. But the ship is sinking. What is the use? What's more? Yeah, we want good results, not just compliance. Okay, compliance with the procedure. I'm not speaking here about compliance with constraints from regulators. Okay, so no more questions. Okay, so it seems that there are no more questions. Okay, so yep. So, I think I've covered all of your questions, not many. So let's wrap up the webinar. Just a few words before we finish. Okay. So as I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar is too brief to cover details in depth. So for more comprehensive insights, please check out our blogs. So you can ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly by email. You can also download this presentation deck from our website or take a look at video tutorials and documentation templates. We'll send you an email with all necessary links, okay? And finally, if you join this webinar through Zoom, you'll see a short survey. So I would kindly ask you to spend a minute to fill it in. The recording of this presentation will be available in a few hours. You will receive a link to the recording. If you join the webinar through LinkedIn and YouTube, you will receive a link to the short survey now, and the link to the presentation will be posted on our event page in a few minutes. That will be all. Thank you for your participation, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Have a nice day.